Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and this week I'm excited to introduce to you someone I met after releasing Gray's incredible episode a couple weeks back. If you watched Gray's episode and stuck around to the end, you saw he put out a call to action for male survivors to stand up and speak out if they're capable of it. Not only did Gray have a bunch of male survivors who reached out to him after his interview was released, but I also had an encouraging comment left on Gray's video that said, "I'm a male survivor, I'll speak. I've talked to Cathy O'Brien personally in the past," unquote. So you guys, introducing man of God, SRA and mind control survivor, fierce warrior, and now anti-child abuse advocate, Regulus. When I first talked to Regulus over Zoom, the pieces of his story he shared blew me away. I'm so grateful he decided to come on and share with you, because I think all of you out there listening will also get so much value from the story you are about to hear. Like many guests, Regulus comes from a multi-generational family and unintentionally turned into the black sheep when he had memory recall as an adult. This is the first time he will be telling his story publicly, and like many of the other SRA survivors who have been on this podcast, recording a spoken testimony can be incredibly healing and can also provide a level of comfort and safety to a survivor, knowing that their story is out of their body and into the world, come what may. Regulus is so courageous for answering the call to action for male survivors, and I can't wait for you all to hear his story and his voice. I'd also like to put out a call to action and announce that if you listening have a story to tell, if you are a survivor or a whistleblower and would like to be a guest on the podcast, please contact me directly at my new podcast email, imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com. I'm excited to have this offering now because I've relied so heavily on referrals and have noticed lately that people have been having a hard time figuring out how to get a hold of me if they want to come on the podcast. So again, if you're a survivor or whistleblower and want to be a guest, please send me an email at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com. And please share any information you can about why you'd like to be considered as a guest. It's the perfect time for a call to action. So you guys, I'm excited to introduce to you today our guest of honor, whistleblower, voice for the voiceless, and brave overcomer, Regulus. Regulus, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Man, it's so cool to have you on. You know, I don't get a lot of comments on, I get a lot of comments on my videos, but I don't get a lot of comments of people saying that they want to be a guest, you know, and it's very new to me. It's been so surprising to me that I haven't had more males reach out, you know, so it's really awesome having you on. You're only the second male guest that I've had on that's been a survivor of these things versus an advocate. So I think it's really valuable for people to hear both sides of the story, because obviously in these systems, there's different roles for everybody. And there's different pieces to the puzzle that connect and on all levels when we get the full story. So I'm really honored that you came on, and I'm so proud of you for speaking up. And I know that this is your first time speaking. So I have a quick question that I just thought of on those lines that I want to start with. How come you, or what do you think about the lack of males in that have either been through SRA or MK Ultra, just these different survivors of these, you know, really high level crimes? Why do you think that it's maybe harder for a male to speak out, or why do you think that there's less males who might speak out about this? Just in your opinion.
Well, in my opinion, I would say like I noticed a lot of men don't speak. It seems to be a lot of women like on the YouTube channels. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to say something. But I think, I don't know, it could be a lot of things. I think maybe due to the nature of everything, men are probably more prone to go to jail first. So that could be a reason. And I mean, I know people, men that were in kind of the same situation as me in my city, and they're in jail. So that could be a reason.
That makes sense. There's a lot to lose whenever you speak up.
Yeah, that and like I mean, like I went through the mind control program. Like I told you, part of that was I was supposed to be like a drug runner, things like that. And like my cousin's boyfriend, I seen him kind of go through the same thing I went through, but like at the time I didn't know completely that it was a mind control program and that I was being gang stalked and this stuff. I just I knew he was getting his drugs from some of the police in my city, and I knew how it worked, that they were letting him push the stuff and watching. And when the time came, the day he had like a bunch of keys, of coke and heroin, like a bunch of illegal guns, and just somehow the police just knew right when that day was, and they reeled him in. And um, it was a setup from the beginning. I liken it to the story. You ever hear of Rick Ross, that guy that sold drugs in L.A. and uh he was doing like $1 million a day, ended up going to jail, and while he was in jail, a private researcher figured out that what he was selling drugs for the CIA, and it was funding the Iran-Contra war, and he never knew it the whole time. And that's kind of how it works. And he said he got started just playing. He was on the tennis court, and somebody came up to him and kind of befriended him and brought him in and kind of introduced him to how to do it without him really knowing that it was a whole operation that was behind him.
Yes, 100%. That's definitely an iconic story that, once you learn about this type of thing that we're talking about, it definitely, it begs to question what they didn't tell us about a story like that.
Yeah. So and I know that's what they tried to do to me, and like I said, I know that's what they did to my cousin's boyfriend.
Well, let's get into your story a little bit. These stories never go in a full chronological order, but why don't we maybe start with talking about some of your family history before, and we'll get into your childhood, but let's maybe talk about the lineage that you come through and that generational aspect of it, maybe as far as you can remember, or maybe starting at your grandparents, and let's talk about them and your parents.
Well, from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I mean my biological dad he was a motorcycle guy. You know, he ran around with the Pagan Motorcycle Club, motorcycle gang. I like to call them a motorcycle gang because they hate being called a gang, and they want to be known as like a motorcycle club that does like toys for tots and just some guys that ride bikes on the weekend. They're not at all. They're a gang, and they're involved in a lot of filthy stuff. So I just want to get that straight first. But yeah, my dad was one of them guys. He was out of my life early, and I had a stepdad, and my stepdad, that guy was what we call a handler. He was my handler. He was the one that was grooming me my whole life, and um, my mom's you know, just a blue collar worker. She worked in factories her whole life. Country girl, sweet old lady. I have a feeling she's a victim of this too. Because like she was telling me a story too recently about how when she was a kid, she got ran over by a car, but it didn't hit her. It just like ran over, and she was so traumatized by it that she had to like learn how to walk again and stuff. So when I hear stories like that, it makes me wonder. like what really is going on. But yeah. And then my mom got remarried. They divorced my first stepdad, and my second stepdad was he's a son of Satan, motorcycle gang member, and he was a handler of mine too. He's a son of Satan. He's involved with the satanic power structure. He's, he's a truck driver too. Like that's his day job. So like, I just like to say that because people think, these people are like, a bunch of generals in an underground bunker somewhere, or some business suits up on the smoking cigars in their office building. It's not. It's a lot of regular people. My stepdad, the guy that raised me, was a electrician.
That's always scary for me to think about stuff like that. It makes you look at every interaction that you have with people differently, because like you said, you do hear of stories of these people being in positions of power in society, and obviously that's true, but there's not just one stereotype for any type of abuse. A lot of things do have a stereotype or a type of person that might fit the description of whatever the stereotype is. But with abuse, it's anybody. There's no economic status, there's no gender, there's nothing identifiable that you can just look around and say, oh, that person's in a satanic cult, or that person's an abuser. A lot of times these are like people that are, whether they're in a high position job or not, a lot of times they're very respected in the communities, and they have friends, and people think that they're really, just like a normal, good person. And I'm sure that was the case with these men too.
Yeah, for sure. And some of them even go to church. Like they try very hard to keep up public appearances. Like that is a priority for them. And and like the churches are involved. Some of the churches are involved in my area. Like I was telling you about my little cousin being abused at a church school, like a daycare or something like that. It's a church. And yeah, these people try very hard to keep up appearances. And it's people that are involved in my stalking, especially. I mean, it's all colors, creeds. Like you said, people who make all kinds of different money, and just some of them are street people, some of them are doctors, some of them are teachers. It's just all kinds of people. Is really the only common thread is like the Freemasonry. That's what they have in common. And it's interesting too, like if you see one of the symbols of Freemasonry is the double-headed eagle. And that's a perfect example of what that symbolizes, is that it's two, on the face, it's two different groups, but behind the scenes we're one and the same beast. So that's why, like, when I try to tell people, like, okay, the pagan motorcycle gang, these outlaws, these organized criminals are working with the police, and the police are protecting them, and on the surface people can't understand it. They're like, no, it's cops and robbers. But no, that's not. They're really working together.
Yes, it's the whole duality. Freemasons do the same thing, working hand in hand with, law enforcement and the court systems and people in high ranking positions. And then, using that double eagle model, you look at politics, and it's very much that same structure where the appearance is that there's two sides to the story. And really it's two chapters of the same book. It's not something separate. It's not two separate books. And we co-create that reality for them by believing in the duality of it, and it keeps us separated, divided, and obviously asleep. So that's a really great analogy that you used with that. And you're right. Like these groups, Freemasons, the same, these biker gangs, like it's really scary that these groups are just able to be forward facing in society. I have a Freemason lodge a half mile down the street from my house. Nobody blinks an eye at it, and it's there right next to a preschool, two preschools, and a couple churches. And it's like, this is crime that's right in front of us. And people are like, oh, the Freemasons, they come and do community events. They donate to children's hospitals. They have this facade that society doesn't question any part of the narrative that they're handed, even though it's like you said, the son of Satan. Like, how is this even allowed? How aren't people like enraged that this is in existence? And they just kind of go with the flow and are like, oh, well, they're just, riding their bikes around. They're just friends. They're just doing this. Like they're harmless, and it's that ignorance that allows all this abuse to continue. And they probably just, get off on it and think we're,
So
ridiculous for
stupid.
just, yeah.
Yeah, just like you said, or like I said earlier about that, how they try to keep up appearances, like the Freemasons say we do charity, the Shriners and the hospitals and all this. And some of them very well may believe that. I don't look at I look at Freemasonry as more like a vetting ground for the satanic elite or whatever you want to call them, and not just, I think some people will get in and actually do believe that they're part of this fraternity that does charity and stuff like that. But and the bikers are the same way. Like they want to be like, oh, we do organize Toys for Tots every year. We do these bike runs to raise money for kids with cancer or whatever. And the other thing that's interesting about the bikers is like, no matter where they're from, they pretty much all have like these satanic and pagan names. Like the one my dad was involved in is called the Pagans. My other one, stepdad's and the Sons of Satan. Then you got like the Hell's Angels, and then the Diablos, and there's all this. Like they're all just satanic groups. It's right funny. It face people. The people in my area that like know these guys that hang around us, they never put it together. They don't think of it like that. They just think, oh, he's a cool guy. Yeah, he might, if you want to get some weed or something, go call fucking dickhead or whatever his biker name is. And um, but nah, like they're definitely involved in child pornography and human trafficking, and, drugs, guns, all that stuff.
And so let's talk about that aspect of it a little bit. Were your grandparents involved at all?
No, I don't really know my granddad.
Okay.
Him and my dad never got along, and I don't know why. And then my dad left when I was 3. And I know the motorcycle, the pagans made him leave and pretty much sell drugs out of state, and then he just kind of disappeared for a while. I found him when I was like, my grandma found him when I was like 14, and he was down in Tennessee, and yeah, the pagans had him on a mission down there. And yeah, so I don't know, but I read a book by David McGowan, who's a researcher and all this. And in that book, he talks about a certain bloodlines in Pennsylvania, and he was talking about my family. And he's talking, not only was he talking about my granddad's side, but he's also talking about my grandma's side and their history, how they came in. It was just like a paragraph or a page or two of a book, but he put it together. And I didn't know it, but he was talking about my family. But he said like we're descendants to King Ferdinand, and that was the basically the what he was saying about that, about my family. So I don't know if that has something to do with it.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So that would make sense though as to why your mother was targeted by these men if they had caught on to, maybe she came from a bloodline, maybe it wasn't an abusive bloodline, but maybe it was still a bloodline.
Oh,
And,
no.
the stepfathers may have, I feel like the networks, they all know.
Yeah, me too. I know her family is definitely involved, 100%.
Her side of the family.
Yeah, her side of family is definitely they're definitely will. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like all my cousins and stuff, like, they're either perpetrators of this stuff, this SRA stuff and secret society stuff and all this, or they're victims of it. It's like nobody on that side of on my mom's side of the family that seems to be normal. You
What are some of the signs that you noticed that were red flags for you?
know.
Obviously, I'm sure you had memories emerge, but was there anything before that that was kind of that you're like, okay, I could see whenever I was growing up that like,
Yeah, I mean, like they do the hand signals and stuff. Like I was telling you about, like how like the 666 hand signal that they do. I've seen my stepdad do that a lot to guys. That and I told you a story about the police when he did it to the police, and the police gave him a break, but he does it in a way like he just waved high, but he had his hands in a 666, and it's like you could see the cop like noticed it. But I seen him do it to just regular people, and it's not just their hand signals; it's certain phrases and stuff that they say, um, and that they notice it. And like I seen him being like buddy with guys he should have no business being buddy, people from a totally different world than him. Things it's just strike me odd that like how's he know this guy, and why are they so tight? Um,
um, yeah, there's so much to these stories, and trying to put the network together, and figuring out, okay, well, it's interesting. It's like, you think your life is one way growing up, and then you wake up and realize that it wasn't. And like, you look at every person that's been in your life or people that you've crossed paths with, and you realize that how much was curated like a living Truman show,
yeah.
relationships and
Hmm.
people that cross your path, jobs that you get. And
Hmm.
so it's like so much undoing of looking at stuff that you thought was coincidence and saying, wait a minute, was this person involved in my abuse or in the system? Was this person was did I meet that person by accident? Did I get this job on accident, or was this planned,
Yeah, like I know, like my uncles and my stepdad and stuff. They all hang out the Freemason Lodge. They also are Knights of Columbus. They also hang around Knights of Columbus. Some of the girls that honeypotted me were from the Knights of Columbus too. Um, and then, like a lot of this stuff I didn't figure out till later, till I started putting it together. So like when I was in it, um, I just thought these were like normal people that just were like my friends or whatever. Um, and really see, okay, so really what happened here is when I started to understand what was happening to me was probably about 5 years ago. I studied law in my spare time. I don't know, sued a couple cops, couple municipalities, um, and I was just working and studying law in my spare time. And I want to put a case against some judges and some sheriffs, and they didn't like that. So, and I remember when I went into the courtroom, because first I had to defend myself, and once I got these charges dropped, then I was going to be able to do the civil side of it. And when I went to go defend myself, I walked into the courtroom. Nobody's there but the judge. And the judge looks to me and he goes, "Is this the hill you want to die on?" And I was like, I didn't really understand what he meant at the time. I thought he's like, "Do you really want to do this uphill battle with us? We're not going to make it easy on you." I didn't know he meant literally, because like the next day, next 2, 3 days later or something, like I would be walking down the street and random people would be like, "We're gonna fucking kill you," or I'd be sitting at on a park bench or something. Somebody walk by, say, "We're gonna fucking kill you," and and then they started flying the planes over my head. And I remember the first time was I went and got a chiropractic adjustment, and when I stepped out of place, a commercial airliner flew right over my head, so close that way it rattled everything. And I mean, it was so close I could see the seams and the bolts in the thing. And then the planes, since that day, planes just been following me. I remember I went to the clothing store, got a pair of shoes, and people were there waiting for me, and planes. I remember planes flying over the store so low that the racks were shaking, and that's how they got my attention. And so I was like, oh, okay. So long story short, I ended up withdrawing that case, and I was like, all right, you got it, and it just never stopped. The stalking never stopped, and I started to see how they were operating and how they were doing this stuff, and when I seen that, then it started to dawn on me that, oh, these people been around the whole time. These people have been in the shadows watching me and manipulating me my whole life. Like when I seen them come out of the shadows and they started doing this stalking overtly, it just everything clicked into place for me. Like and all my past, my crazy past, and just all made sense that they were there the whole time, trying to just control me and manipulate me. And then about 2, 3 years ago, I started having flashbacks of SRA, and
What was it that triggered that for you? Was there an event that happened or something that something specific or a specific moment that you remember that triggered it?
no, it was I was just a normal day. It's nothing special. I was just hanging out, and so I started. It's really interesting because I started just out of nowhere getting really sick to my stomach, like I was gonna vomit, and I couldn't understand why because I didn't eat anything or drink or anything, and then this memory came back, and the memory was I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, and I'm like hunched over eating something, and I can't tell if it's an organ, like it's like something brownish, reddish, slimy. I don't know if it's an organ or shit, but I was being forced to eat this, and there's people standing around, and it was like somewhere in like a basement or something. I could see like stone walls, and I could see the haircut I had. That's how I know how old I was because I had this certain haircut when I was that age, and that was the first memory to come back. And then I started trying to look on the internet, figure out what it was, and which I don't recommend people do because the internet is such a trap. And if you're targeted and stalked, they had control of my computer. Imagine they have. I know they have. 'Cause I talk to other people and they have problems with securing their devices, and they will be there on the internet waiting for you to pull you in and mess with you more. But yeah, I ended up reading Fritz Springmeier's The Formula book, and when I read that book, it really put together, the first couple chapters of it when he describes like the training that we go through and, and the experiences that we have, like all that stuff was happened to me when I was a kid, all that stuff. And it was like he connected a lot of things that I thought were previously unconnected, like certain tests they used to make me take when I was a little kid, and um,
Could you go into that a little bit? I know a lot of people listening, they may have heard of Fritz Springmeier, but I'm not sure if, for people who haven't read the book, could you talk about your experiences and how they relate to that and how that tied together for you?
yeah. Well, so I know when I was like really young, and I told you I was a gifted kid, and so I would go to like these child kind of behavioral clinics. I don't really remember the name of the place, but it was something along these lines. And they would take me under the guise of either having like ADD or being gifted. And they want to do tests on me. And I used to go to this place, and it was full of psychologists. And the head one was a straight up. German dude that spoke German, which I think is interesting. I kind of think he was a Nazi now. But and the one thing I didn't tell you that you asked me about the energy weapons that I didn't tell you before is so they had the ability to give me headaches, and it all started when I used to go to that clinic. And how
As a
I know,
child, right?
huh?
As a child.
Yeah, as a child, this clinic I'm talking about with this German doctor, um, yeah, it started then, but I didn't know it. I just, cause like I was a kid, I didn't know what's going on, and I just thought I was getting headaches. But like how I learned that they were giving me these headaches was, I had a guy at work that was stalking me, was one, keeping an eye on me and all this stuff. And I remember I got at the end of my shift and he was sitting on the toolbox holding his face, and I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "Oh, I got a headache." And I'm like, "All right." And I was like, "Oh, I feel better, man. I gotta go." So I start walking down the street, and this guy bumps into me. And I kind of push him off, and I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" He's like, "Oh, sorry, I got a real bad headache." So then I get to my car, and all of a sudden I just got this real bad headache, and
What?
like, yeah, and it was real bad. And but because those two guys did that to me, like that's how they were letting me know that they're giving me these headaches. Right. So then I started thinking about it. I'm like, this is what used to happen to me when I was a kid. I used to go to that clinic. I'd be sitting in the lobby and I just have these splitting headaches out of nowhere for no reason. So like now I think that what they were doing was testing it out to see if it worked, maybe getting like a threshold of pain for me or something. Like they were testing it out.
Wow. What else do you remember from there? When you say that they were giving you tests, what type of tests do you remember they were administering on you? And
Uh,
was this in Lancaster too that they were doing?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like I remember they made me draw stuff. They made me do stuff with like blocks and balls. And I remember there was these tests like matching faces. It was almost like that memory game in a way, but it was these massive sheets of his faces. And they could see how accurate I could be and how many I could do in such an amount of time, um and just other just question tests and things.
And so basically it's like they're testing you, telling you that you're part of a gifted program and that this is just normal, where it appears that they were looking for what gifts you have that they can exploit and figure out where to place you in the program.
Yeah, that's what Fritz said. It's to get it like a psychological model on you or something. And
And so what was, I guess, the result of that? Where did that direct you? I know that you mentioned a little bit about how they used you, but what did you discover when your memories came back? What were some of the things that started happening after you took those tests? Where did you get placed and what started happening to you after that?
yeah, I don't know. I really do wonder what they came up with. Man, I don't know. I didn't get to see the results or anything, but I mean, I did, like, I was in college when I was like 11, 12, 13. I used to go to the university and live on campus and take college courses. I was, gifted program.
Did you have any abuse or do you remember any of those experiments happening at that college?
No. Um, but like, I like my stepdad used to sick the dog on me and stuff like that. And I had like conscious memories of that. And I was a little kid, um, probably like 8, 9 years old. And I mean, he was just really, I won't say he was abusive psychologically. And now that I understand what they were doing, it was really, he was grooming me, molding me. They wanted to, they were trying to turn me into something. And and also another thing about the energy weapons that I didn't mention before is they have the ability to like induce emotions and I didn't figure this out until I heard other TIs and SRA survivors talk about their experience, and I was like, oh, that's what happened to me. That's what they used to do to me. But like they would induce me with like a murderous rage out of nowhere. They also try to make me suicidal out of nowhere, and they've done this to me a couple times over my life. But that's a one thing they can do with them energy weapons is induce emotions. And I told you they tried to groom me. Like what they tried to groom me for was to be, I was run drugs for them. I could have been an enforcer for the pagans. I definitely had that opportunity. They, they wanted me to get into, basically pimping women, and um, I never really got into that stuff because I'm not really that type of person. But I think that they were trying to pull me into that world, and they were trying to, and it probably would have just got worse until I, turned into one of them sick bastards. I'm pretty sure that's what they were trying to lead me down. And um, yeah, so like I mean, they haven't done it to me. Last time they did to me was like 10 years ago, but they'll come out of nowhere, and your blood boils, and you just want to destroy everything, and they even kill, like you just get like this tunnel vision. And I didn't know what was wrong. I just thought, I just thought that I was an angry kid or something, but it just wasn't it. It was them, inducing this into me. And I know when I was a kid too that they had my telephone tapped when I was a teenager. They had cameras in my TV, and like even now, like they'll say something to me about something I did when I was a kid. Like they've been there the whole time watching. They've been the whole time, and I seen a documentary on YouTube I was watching. It's about this girl, this poor girl, but she has like uncontrollable orgasms all day. It's her whole life is just she's having these orgasms. And I was trying to interview her. She can't even talk. She's having orgasms. It's all day, and they're taking her to the hospital, and they ran MRIs on her, did all the tests, and she's perfectly healthy. They can't figure out what's wrong with her. And I know what they're doing is they're using these energy weapons. And there's some dude probably just watching her this and just doing this to her. Somebody's doing it to her. But that's how it works. You need to put like a RF scanner on that girl or something instead of medical tests.
Oh my goodness. It makes so much sense though, because I think society, we're not taught about frequency and energy in our education system. And so we're taught the words to maybe what a frequency would elicit in our body. Like we're taught the word anger, but we're not taught like what comprises anger, that it's literally a frequency in our body. It's a state, and it's something that's changeable, but it's also something that can be activated, especially with these programs. Like we know that they use frequency in mind control programs to elicit different brainwave states, different hypnotic states, to make the brain more suggestible and easier to control and more programmable. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it makes sense that they've studied this enough to where they know the exact frequency, not just of anger, but like you said, of rage. And so
and hypersexual,
they figure out a way to create that frequency and use it against somebody and have them, commit crimes or do things that they wouldn't normally do. And because you don't see the weapon that's attacking you, like you said, like, why wouldn't you think you're just crazy or something's wrong with you? Like you'd blame yourself. What logical person would think, oh, somebody's attacking me with a frequency weapon, right? Like it's such a confusing type of abuse too.
it is. And I think that they're using it on everybody. I think that's why. Well, for one, like I know they're using it on like these school shooters and this stuff. I know for a fact. I can see their stories and stuff and see how they operate, and I know because I mean it's kind of what I went through. Like to understand how this works, you have to understand that I would say the Freemasons. I use the Freemasons as an umbrella term. It's not exactly the Freemasons, but it's just the secret societies. But these people, what they got is spycraft, dark psychology, and electronic weapons. This is how they are in control, and this is what they're using against the public, and then all day, every day, this is how they keep their communities under control. And I think I know for a fact that a lot of school shooters. And I was reading one of these shooters recently. It actually came out that there was a FBI agent that was in the chat rooms with him, coaching him, like telling him what kind of guns to buy and this kind of stuff. But he didn't present himself as an FBI agent. Of course, he's acting like a normal guy that was into the same stuff as this guy that was the shooter. But that's how it works. And they did that to me when I was a kid. Uh, they did it to me. They try to do it to me now. I can see it, but there's. I think I get on a internet and talk and meet people, and they were there the whole time. You know,
Wow.
ever since I was a little kid.
Wow. And so what kind of in your programming, you had mentioned being, being groomed to be a drug runner and to be sort of on that side of the operations. What types of programs do you remember being in? Were you in military programs, or I guess what was the training background that they ended up putting you in?
Yeah, I was never in any kind of like military programs. Like, and I hear other people who are like me saying that they got all this training. The closest thing I ever had was, I was in a boxing and I boxed at a near pro level, and but I don't know if that was part of it or not. Well, yeah, I mean, my boxing coach is one of them. Now I think about it, for sure. He was definitely one of those people there watching me and manipulating me. He was in on the program, and yeah, it's more like just training. For how can I explain this? It's like I would just be with people, right? And they would just give me suggestions or correct me, like if I said something stupid or did something stupid. And what they were doing was basically it was like training on how to sell drugs and get away with it, or how to, even how to like kill somebody and get away with it. You know, even the fingerprints and the dental records. Like I remember people telling me stuff when I was a kid. And you think it's just like a normal, because it's not a normal conversation, but you think you're just having a conversation with somebody. But really, now that I see what they were doing, is that they were kind of training me and coaching me along without me knowing it. You know, like I told you the story about the pimp that I became friends with. I just thought, you know, we were both street guys. We were working the same job, and he was working next to me, and we just started getting along and telling stories and cutting up and all that stuff. And then we became good friends, and then we started hanging out. And then next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, I got these girls that can you take them up to the mountains for me and just make sure they're all right. Bring me back the money. I split it with you." And at the time, I just thought it was like just my friend doing his thing. And um, now that I know how they operate, I can see that it's 100% a setup to try to pull me into that world. And that's how it works. Like, I mean, you know, they call it, you get the tap on the shoulder or whatever, but it's not. Tap on the shoulder is a nice way of saying it. You know, for me, the first thing they had to do was just mind control me and manipulate me. And I know a lot of this stuff is just like a lot of stuff that I've been talking about is just like manipulation, but uh, because of the way I was treated growing up, and I think because of the SRA stuff, like um I have ability to dissociate big time. And when you're in that mind state, it's kind of like you have tunnel vision. And with all the other things that they did to me psychologically growing up, I could see how I was susceptible to that kind of stuff. And I kind of lost my train of thought, but
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like you're not aware of what they're doing. Like they curate your life, literally like the Truman
Mhm.
Show. Who you're gonna meet, where you're gonna meet them. You said, you thought you met this person randomly who was a
Right.
pin. He befriended you, like groomed you essentially, and made you think that it was just chance that you met him. So then you end up trusting him. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I don't know if you did
No,
trust
you're
him.
saying it right.
But that's their goal. They want you to trust them. So when they're like, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Like, I'd really love if you did this, or come with me on, come with me." And then you do because you think this person's your friend, and all of a sudden you're knee deep in bullshit,
Mhm.
and they're
Exactly.
blackmailing you, and all of a sudden it's like, what am I involved in?
Exactly. You nailed it. You ain't putting words in my mouth. You probably saying it better than I could. It's the same thing with the drug dealers. Like I told you, like it would be like I would lose my job. Like I caught a guy at work taking taking the tags off the work that I did and putting them on defective product, so it looked like I was shipping out defective product and trying to get me, stuff like that. That's part of I guess they call it workplace stalking, workplace mobbing. But yeah, I heard somebody on the internet say they call it love bombing, and they know you because they've been watching you forever, so they know what you like and what to say to you. And these people come up to you and just befriend you. And it's the same thing with the women. All the I would say 90% of the girls I've been with have been honeypots, and the ones that weren't, they manipulated the situation to where they ruined the relationship and got one of their people in. Um, and a lot of them too were like, I should have seen it coming. They're like witchy. Some of them were like witchy and saying low key stuff about like pentagrams and stuff. But like I thought we, joke around. I'd say stuff like that as a joke or something like. So I never at the time I never really thought much of it. But then as I figured out who these people were and what they were doing, I'm like, oh, now when that girl was saying something about she a succubus, I know exactly what she meant. You know what I mean? Or stuff like that.
Yeah, we're not taught their language, we're not taught the symbols and the hand signs and the words that they use. They always tell us, but since
Yeah,
we don't know, it's like they're required to tell us to get our
yeah.
consent. But
It,
we don't know what we're hearing. We're just like, oh, a pentagram? You mean like a star? Like,
that
okay. It
that
doesn't
is
scream like satanic to us. We're just like, okay.
Yeah, that's so true. They do a lot of foreshadowing and a lot of things they've done to me. They somebody said something in an indirect way about it, and it later happened. Um, and I wanted to touch on something that you said earlier about how they the biggest tool that they have that allows them to do a lot of this stuff is you don't see them coming. They operate in like a blind spot. You just don't. My whole life I kind of knew something was wrong with the people around me and something, and I was being set up, I would think. And I always, because of that, I always had like one foot in, one foot out, everything. But I never understood why. I just knew shit was suspicious. People around me were suspicious. And sometimes, like, I'd meet somebody and they say something about me that they shouldn't know, but you don't have no context for it. So I'm like, that's weird. How they know that? And then you just go about your life. And so yeah, that's the biggest thing is the main thing that protects is they operate in a blind spot. People don't have the context that this group exists, that they're in your neighborhood, that you probably have talked to these people, and some of you might talk to these people on a regular basis. And you just don't see it coming.
There
You don't
is.
think that there's a satanic army out there of pedophiles trying to mind control people. But that's exactly what it is. And then you definitely don't think it's the people in your community that you respect, like your doctor or your teacher or the principal at the school. You don't see it coming. That's the only reason they got me. I didn't see it coming. Uh,
It's like you said, they're masters of mind control. They know how to fit into society to where nobody looks twice at them. They know the right things to say. Like they're very, very bright, intelligent, clever, organized organization.
Yeah, well, I would say this to an extent. You're right. I can see what's going on and how there definitely is an intelligence behind them. But I'll tell you, like my family, they're a bunch of dumb junkies. You know what I mean? I think, a lot of meth heads, like some of these people are dumb, but they're controlled. And they're being told what to do. But like I could imagine. I don't have any proof of this, but I could just imagine like one of my uncles got caught with child porn. And so this group comes in and says, we could ruin your life, throw you in jail. Why don't you just do what we tell you to do, and you'll be one of us, and we'll help your kids go to school and get you a better job. And I could definitely see that kind of situation happening, and I think that's how it works a lot. And I think like a lot of the, I guess, low level people you call them, they're not smart at all. I think they're taught a couple tricks that work, and they're told what to do. Like my stepdad, the guy that handled me, he's a dumb. He'll do any drug you put in front of him. Drinks a 30 pack of beer a day. He's dumb as a box of rocks. But you know,
But he follows orders well. He's obedient.
yeah, he did what they
Probably a
said.
psychopath.
Yeah, yeah. I used to wonder why that guy would drink so much. I mean, that guy would get off work and drink a 30 pack and do it every single day. And he would just fall off this chair and piss himself and lay on the floor. And I'm like, why is this guy like this? Now I know. Like I don't think he can live with what he's done. And the other thing that bothers me about that situation is he got remarried and his new wife has a daughter and her daughter has two kids, a girl and a boy. And I seen the boy, and he has custody of him. He finessed that. So I seen this boy, and he had to be, I don't know, 8, 9 years old, and he had that same chip on his shoulder I did when I was his age, and I just knew it. I could just tell. I looked down and knew. I was like, he's going through the exact same thing I did, and I don't know what to do. And then the girl, I told you this story, but he was being investigated by CPS, the Child Protective Services, for molesting his granddaughter, and then the guy that reported him is now in jail.
Wow.
Yeah,
That shows how protected these people are. You know, the courts have their back, law enforcement has their back, and anybody that tries to expose it gets punished.
like if you understand that and see it, I mean, you can see this stuff happening all the time. Like I always, like the Jeffrey Dahmer thing where he drilled a hole in the guy's head, filled it up with like acids and chemicals, and the guy escaped and he's walking down the street bleeding with a hole in his head, and the police showed up and said, "Oh, it's a gay lover quarrel," and escorted the guy back to Dahmer's apartment with a hole in his head, and nobody went in his house, and the guy had like vats of body parts and stuff in his house. But the police covered it up the whole time. Like, that's how it works, people. That's on different levels. Like, I mean, that's a crazy high crime, but on little levels too. Like, see some of these these guys, I think they're so enamored with what they're doing, like the pedophilia and stuff. Like sometimes I hear them talk about it, like it's like they're talking about the football game or something. And I remember being somewhere and this cop was talking about how he caught a priest, one of the local priests with a 12-year-old girl, and he ended up reporting it and got his ass chewed out because this priest is like a pillar of the community. You shouldn't do this. You should. Uh, and he was talking about it like, and the way he was saying it was like, I like little kids too. I shouldn't have did that to him because if I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. That's the way he was like talking about it, and it's like, you know,
Just psychopathic.
it is. It really is.
Like
And
there's no emotion tied to it, like negative emotions. It's just like you said, talking about brushing their teeth or what they had for dinner or watching the football game.
yeah, I can tell you like the people that I've been around are some straight up control freaks. Like they're obsessed with controlling everything, controlling other people. And they taught me all the time like that because they got me gang stalked. They got like all my electronics hacked. They follow me everywhere. They know everything I do. They sabotage everything I try to do. And it's like say, send me messages like, do you feel in control and all this stuff. And it's just like I asked Fritz one time, I said, when I talked to him, I said, Fritz, I said, well, I don't understand like what these people want from me and what they're trying to do. And he told me, he said, don't try to understand it. He says it's just insanity. And I think he's right. I think it's like, Alice in Wonderland, fucking Mad Hatter shit that just, or now I think about it, like, the Golden Dawn was started by Alice Crowley, and his motto was "Do what you will." So it's like it's to the fullest. It's I think that's one of the enticements. I know that's one of the things I've been told is that if I did join these people, I could do what I want without repercussion, and so I think that's a big part of it, and that's why they look out for each other so much and their brothers. One, because when you do crimes like that, you get a bond with somebody, but two, I mean, they got to look out for each other so they can keep doing this stuff. And I was listening to a Jordan Maxwell video the other day, and he was saying about how in World War II, he was telling a story about how two Freemasons met on the battlefield. They wouldn't fight each other, and they turn around and go fight somebody else. And if you understand why and how they think, like that explains a lot about the mentality of these people and what we're up against and who they are and how they operate.
Yes. And like the general public, we're aware of our local laws, maybe some national laws, federal laws, our state laws, our county laws, but we're not made known that there's different layers of law. All of us, the 99%, we follow the man-made laws that are publicized, but there's layers of laws that these elite people, and not all of them are elite, but just they think that they are, they follow a different set of laws where, like you said, it's above our law. Their law is to protect each other, and that comes before any other law that we know as normal civilians. They're to protect each other. They have blood oaths, and the law that they or I should say the vows that they take to protect each other, it's above the laws. Like that gets prioritized over the laws that they're supposed to follow as citizens of wherever they live.
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
like they're above the law. So how do we, there's no way to persecute them because it's a
Mhm.
different set of laws than any of us are involved with.
Okay. Well, so like I said, I study law. This is what I know to, to help maybe other TIs and stuff that are facing this. So I think it's USC 68 or USC 64. It's something like that. There's actually a federal law that says the United States government can experiment on people without their consent. It's legal. So if you're an SRA survivor, you're a targeted individual, and you try to go to court on that front, you're gonna lose. You're gonna get your case tossed out one or two ways. I've seen the other way. The first is that that law that says the government can experiment on people. The second is uh national security. That it's a matter of national security, so they have uh you know a right. They can. I've actually seen a case where that was filed and the judge dismissed it immediately. But here's the good news. These people are criminals, right? So you might not be able to get them for that, but guarantee you they're committing a whole bunch of other crimes that you can't get them for. And especially if they're public, any kind of public official, public cop, mayor, judge. But judges are tricky because judges got 10th Amendment judicial immunity, which is pretty much absolute, except for if they're acting in an administrative capacity. And that's the loophole that I was using to go after some judges. And I thought I was smart. They didn't find it amusing. But so that's what I want to say about the law. If anybody, I would encourage TIs and SRA survivors to pursue law because they do balk at it. They do not like the law. They do not like, even if it isn't exposing, they respect the law. They don't want no parts of it. So you can get them. You can really get them that way. And I noticed for a lot of for a lot of reasons. One, because I study law, and two, because like I'm not a pushover. So my targeting is a little bit different than what I hear other people's targeting is. They keep a certain distance. I want to say, I don't know if that's the right word, but they know what they can and can't get away with. So I just want to throw it out there for people that are going through this to you have to this is some way that you can make some kind of progress forward and protect yourself in certain ways.
And I also want to add to that too. I know that there are people that may not see justice at all in their lifetime, and it sucks. But
No,
we also have to remember that, the ultimate judge is God, and one day when they're standing before him, they're not going to be able to hide behind their Freemasonic apron or their, whatever title it is that they've earned through these cults. The ultimate judge sees all, and there will be justice, even if it's not something that we see now. But I love just, it can be so, it can feel so hopeless thinking about what you are up against with this, and when you were talking about court and SRA, I've had so many parents come on my podcast that had children that were being abused by one of the parents or family members on one side of the family with SRA, and they took it to court, and the kids got ripped from the parent, screaming out for help because the children were disclosing abuse. And so you see it in real time how they are able to cleverly cover this up. Even in court, there's gag orders, there's different orders that they can, push on the parent to silence them. And if the parent goes against it, they get locked up, where the parent who had the abuse allegations against them doesn't even get looked at. And but then the public persona, they see what's happening, see the one parent go to jail and think, oh, well, that must be the guilty parent because the law said so, and it's like, well, when the judge is a Freemason, the cops are Freemasons. When the husband was a Freemason and his father, they all work together. Once again, their law is above common law, and they will protect each other at all costs, even right down to the death.
No, you're right, and that's why I said, if you're gonna pursue law, there's tricky. There's certain avenues that you're gonna get nowhere with, and if you try to hold them accountable for the SRA and the experimental stuff they're doing, you're gonna have a hard time. So I would advise you going other ways. There is a problem with corrupt judges. That is a problem, but I've had a federal case and a state case that I litigated, and my judges are fair. So you can get some
Awesome.
justice. It's but I do agree with what you're saying that it's hard and there's a lot of corruption, and that's why people need to learn this stuff and learn how it works, because all the checks in Americans law in our society, all the checks and balances are there. The problem is the public is just passive, and the Freemasons, this is a perfect example of how this works. So, the Freemasons teach their membership how to get into these positions of power, how to become a judge, how to become a cop, so that their membership is in there to protect them. There ain't nothing stopping the public from doing this stuff. In Pennsylvania, you can become a judge. All you have to do is go and take a test for 2 weeks. You pass the test, you become a judge. You don't gotta be a lawyer, you know. Um, so there's that. So I mean, I'm a big fan of the American way of life, what it's meant to be, and it's nothing what it was intended to be, but the structure's there and the laws are in place for the people to take it back. So I'm a big
Yes.
advocate for
And
that.
that's like such an encouraging thought. There was a mother, one of the mothers that I interviewed that I was just talking about that had her children ripped from her. She came on my podcast and said she's going to law school. She wants to take on the system. There's another survivor I know, her daughter knows about satanic ritual abuse and it is going to college now to be, a counselor, and she wants to work with SRA patients. And so it's like we do have a lot of power if we think about what can I do to contribute to this? Where can I fit in this puzzle to make a difference and to add something good to try to combat all the bad? And if more of us did step up and apply for positions in law enforcement, in the courts, in, therapist, therapeutic settings, and, just different positions, schools, if we were to take initiative and overcome that, then we would have a much easier time, not only getting help for survivors, but maybe exposing all of this, and putting an end to it and scaring these people out of these positions, or just, being the majority in these systems when it's really the opposite. A lot of people, like you said, are very passive, and they just, and, it doesn't help that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's propaganda and fear being thrown in our face, and generations of that. It's like, no wonder why everybody's so low vibrational almost.
Yeah.
People, they're afraid of their own shadow these days, much less to go
Yep.
take on an ambition like that. But
People need to learn how to say no again.
yes.
People are scared to say no, and and yeah, they're under the fear based, TV's all fear based trauma programming and all that, and but it's not just that. Like, the public is being electronic weapons are being used on the public, and they don't know it. And you see, like, I'm gonna go back and say it again because it's so important for people to understand the weapons that the people in your community have, and they're in every city, every community. They got spycraft, they got electronic weapons, and they got psychology, dark psychology. These are being used against people, and they don't even know it. People at your job might be doing it to you. Your spouse might be doing these things to you, and you don't know it because you just don't have the context for it. So it really, these people are everywhere. There's so many of them. They're everywhere. People, I really want, if they take anything away from what I'm saying, keep this in mind. It reminds me of that Bible quote. I think it's Matthew 10. Jesus said, don't think I come to this world to bring peace. I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. And I'll turn a daughter against her mother and a son against his father. For man's enemies will be the people of his own household. And if y'all understand what I understand, that quote in that scripture is 100% accurate. I wanted to touch on something that you said earlier about like how so many people live, like they go through these programs and they don't even know it, and I know there's so many people that live and die, and they don't even know what they were a part of. Um,
So sad.
it is, and you talk about revenge, and I was reading the Bible, and it said that we're supposed to leave revenge for God. You know, that's and we're supposed to forgive these people. I struggle with that. You know, when I read that stuff, I just pray like God uses me as his instrument to bring his revenge. You know, um,
It's a deep heart concept. And I think forgiveness too, I think has this connotation where people think that because you heal yourself and your emotions to where you're not triggered anymore, like you're not giving your power away to somebody. I feel like that is forgiveness, saying, I'm going to heal myself so I don't react to you anymore. It doesn't mean I accept what you did and I'm okay with it. It means I'm not going to hand my emotions over to you anymore. I'm going to heal. That I think is the ultimate forgiveness, to where now you're not triggered by these things or these people as much as you were, even if it's not completely healed, just getting to the point where, because here's the thing, right? Do you think that person, like what abuser is
mhm.
sitting there worried about their victims? They're not. They're thinking about the next victim, or they're thinking about, their next, the next time that they're going to abuse somebody. Like they're thinking about their future and like what they're going to do. And I'm sure some of them do worry, but what I'm saying is the victims are the one that carry the shame and the guilt, and they're the ones that have that, red cord attached to their abuser, and it affects them for their whole life. And so that person still controls them even if they're not directly in their life. And I really think forgiveness in a sense is saying, I'm going to cut the cord. You no longer, like, you go do you, whatever that is, and I'm gonna focus on me now. Like it's about me healing so you don't affect me anymore. You know what I
Yeah, no,
mean?
I can get behind that. But the thing is, what they do when I say go do you, they say, okay, well, we're just going to torture you some more. How about that? Mhm. That's what they do. So
It's hard.
it
It's such
is.
it's just like it's a very, and I think, I don't know, it might mean something different too for different people. But I think that there really is something to that of just, once you're out of these systems, getting to a point where these people don't have that control over you anymore, to where now you're brought back to being who you want to be and feeling how you want to feel and having experiences that you choose, and not letting that fear-based mind control still, and that low vibration, those negative emotions steer your life.
Yeah. I mean, oh, you know what? Before I forget, there's something I wanted to touch on
Yeah.
about being a male survivor that I want to tell
Right.
people is so you hear about a lot about like the women talking about they're part of breeder programs. And I want to say that I was part of a breeder program too. But from the male perspective, what they were doing to me were getting these honey pots, and they would get pregnant and then disappear with the kid, basically. And it took me a while to catch on that that's what they were doing. But that's part of what they did to me.
And when you say disappeared with the kid, does that mean that the mother and the kid would disappear, that, or that the
Yeah.
child would
Well,
disappear? Yeah.
like so the one story, I'll tell you the story I told you the other day is like I was dating this one girl. She told me she got pregnant and she said, I'm gonna get an abortion. And I even told her I didn't know. I was like, why don't you have it? She's like, oh, I got two kids already. I don't want to do it. I was like, all right, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. So then, and I remember she came home from the clinic and she was just acting real goofy. It wasn't like it was like she was trying to, I look back on it now, it's like she was trying to sell me that she got this procedure done. That she was on all these painkillers or whatever. She was gassed or whatever. But she was overselling it. Like she was trying to. And I just thought, all right, whatever. This girl's goofy, whatever. And then she, like a week after, she picked a fight with me for no reason, and we ended up breaking up. And it was all really forced. All of it was really forced when I look back at it. And then I didn't see her in like a year. When I saw her, like she had like new stretch marks on her body. And I always thought that was weird. Like, what were you doing? You ain't a big girl or nothing. Like, but you don't, I have no context for it. I just moved on. And it was only when I found out later that this is part of the program that they do. I was like, oh, it all just made sense. That she got pregnant, wanted me to believe she had an abortion, and just disappeared and had a kid and did who knows what with it, and then come back around when it's over.
Oh my.
Does that sound crazy? Does that? I feel like when I tell a story like that, that it sounds like to somebody who doesn't know about this stuff, that sounds kind of far fetched. And
Isn't
it
that
is.
the point? They want it. Like it is crazy. It's psychopathic. So it's of course it sounds crazy because it 100% is, but I have heard things like that, not from a male perspective, but from the females, like somebody has to impregnate them, and I'm sure that there's people chosen based off maybe good genetics, bloodlines, gifted programs, spiritual gifts, nationality, whatever it is. I'm sure that there are males that make better candidates in this program than other males, and they match them with females that have, these strong bloodlines, and who knows what they do with the children. Maybe they're used in rituals, maybe they're used in these programs. There's so many ways too that they collect these babies for, and different purposes that they use them for. It's horrific, but it's not
Yeah,
crazy. Like people who know, like this is the playbook. This is what they do.
exactly. And that's what it's hard for me to explain and put it and wrap it up in a way that's easy to understand. But it wasn't until I started understanding their playbook, and like I said, when they started overtly stalking me, is when I really started to put it all together. Like I was going through this my whole life. This is how slick these people are, and I was in it my whole life, and then no, that that my own family was involved.
When did the SRA part come in for you? When did you learn about that? How did that cross your path to where you're like, that's what I went through? And what did that part of your abuse look like? You don't necessarily, if you want to go into details, you can, but like, where did it take place, or like who was involved with that? And feel free to share anything that you want as
I'm
well.
trying. Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out because my memories haven't come back fully, and I didn't really know anything about MK Ultra SRA until I got the flashbacks, and I'm like, I got this memory of me like probably eating a dead kid. What is that? So I started trying to. I got on the internet, started reading about this stuff, and then, like I said, I got Fritz's book, and I was like, oh my god, this whole like the first 5 chapters is everything I went through. It's my whole life. He just described my whole life to me, and that's how I got to know what SRA was and what DID was, and I learned what dissociative disorder, and that's what I think one of the main things they're trying to breed for, something about dissociative people that they want. And I was like, oh man, that's me exactly. Like my nickname at the gym was Rockhead because I don't feel pain. You gotta put me out. That's the only way you can stop me. I could put my hand on a stove, on a hot stove, and not feel it. I mean, I'll feel the pain, but I'll just like mentally rise above it to where it don't affect me. And then not just that, I can dissociate from like my environment too, and I got that, whatever that is. And then I learned about like you can switch personalities. I read Ellen Lecter, a psychologist that deals with that. She got a website. She does great work. She's super legit. Anybody interested in this should check her out. I think it's like stopritualabuse.org or endritualabuse.org. Her name's Ellen Lecter, and I read her website, and she has a bunch of articles up. One that I remember, it was how to spot the symptoms of this kind of abuse in children. And I read that article, and I'm like, that's exactly how I was when I was a kid. But so my thing right now is I don't have complete recall of my memories, and it's something I need help with. I know it's there. I got that one I told you, that memory I told you, that flashback I had. I had another where I was in like a preschool. Um, I was in like a preschool or a daycare or something, and it was nap time. And we always put our heads on a desk, take a nap. And I woke up and I look over, and the teacher had a needle in my arm. And I woke up and I looked over, saw a needle, and then I just went right back to sleep. And that was another memory that came back. And then, yeah, so that's, these things just started coming back, and I'm trying to figure it out.
And I know that you don't have all your memories, so if you don't know this answer, no worries. Did your abuse take place, do you think, just in Lancaster, or did you travel, or were you doing other, you know, did they locate you in different remote places that that the abuse was carried out in?
I don't know. And I remember when they didn't see. I think they messed up when they started overtly stalking me. I don't think they wanted me to figure all the stuff out that I figured out. One about my past and how they were there the whole time, and two, like when I started looking for help to get my memories back and trying to research what this was, it was they would give me messages like shut the fuck up and you better be careful what you do next, and if what you're saying is true, I'd be very, very fucking careful what you do next and things like that. um so yeah, it's that. That's where I'm at. I mean, this is recent, probably 3 years ago tops, that I started having the flashbacks.
And you are the only one in your family that has sort of broken out of
Yeah.
the mind control matrix and sees what's going on, right? Or at least the only one that's been vocal or who has stepped away from the cult.
Yeah, I'm the only one that knows what's going on, and I broke it. I beat them. I beat them. I beat the mental part. They don't have control of me, and I'm very happy about that. I will say this, and I think the ones that are perpetrators of this have gone through the same thing. I don't know if when they're brought in, they're revealed this stuff or what, but like I remember, and I told you this story, but I remember drinking with my stepdad one night, and I was going to beat him up. And I grabbed him. We were yelling at each other, and I grabbed him, threw him on the ground, got on top of him, was getting ready to hit him. And when I did that, he like switched into a completely different person, and he turned into this little kid, and he's making little kid noises like and he started kicking his feet and like a kid throwing a temper tantrum or something. It was the weirdest thing. Like he turned into a completely different person, and I didn't hit him, and I stopped, and I was like, because I would have felt like I was hitting a little kid or something. But I was like, he wasn't that man that was yelling at me 5 minutes ago, and I was like, all right, well, he learned his lesson. If I can make a grown man start feeling like a little kid, I think I made my point. So then again, I didn't have no context for it, and now that I know how this goes with the trauma and the dissociation and stuff, I think I tripped one of his altars when I grabbed him and was getting ready to attack him. So I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So it's like I think my family, the ones that are perpetrators, have gone through this stuff too. And I really think like the gang stalking is a recruitment program. I think I think that when the mind control didn't work, then they did the gang stalking to try and bring me in that way. And I I really see it as like mafia style, mafia tactic. Make you offer you can't refuse. Either join us. They tell me I could join them. They say it all the time. They say, "Why you go through this? Let's be friends." I don't know what your fucking definition of a friend is, but I'm not feeling very friendly right now. Um, It's
Well, they invest so much into, the programming and the rituals and just the abuse between there. Like it's so
sorry to cut you off, but let me just finish this.
Oh
And,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you're right. I'm not necessarily scared that they're gonna kill me, that's their intent. I think I'm a diamond in the rough. I think I'm a project that they have a lot of time and money invested in, and they don't want to just kill me and throw that all away for nothing. Um, and they do say stuff like, uh, I could get the job I want or the businesses I want. You know, like instead of me, like when I start a business, it's an uphill battle because they try to sabotage it and do everything. But that would be, not only would that be removed, but they'd help me. They'd give me money to go get a tool I need or something. Or I would have the doors open for me if I would just capitulate. And 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 even I remember when I was 23 years old, like around that age, they gave me a paper. Well, actually, what it was is so one of these guys that was one of these handler guys around me said, "Hey, go look at the computer." So I walked over there, go look at the computer, and there's this form in legalese, had the Freemason symbol on it, and it said something about giving me $1 million grant if I joined the Freemasons, and it was written in legalese, and I didn't even read the whole thing. I got through the first couple paragraphs, and the gist of it was join the Freemasons, we'll give you $1 million grant, and I just said, I just
Oh
walked
my
away.
gosh.
So I think if if yeah,
It's
they
like
go
what
back to
a
the
temptation.
to the offer that they can't refuse. We're going to destroy your life, or you can join us and take the easy street.
And
You
they
know,
paint the picture very pretty to make it seem captivating that that's the right choice. Who wouldn't want more power and more money, and
do what you want without repercussions.
right.
But you know, I'll say this. One of the things that they are very adamant about and very intent, and this has to do with their belief system somehow. But they want you to join on your own volition. No matter how hard they try to influence that decision. They want you to come to them and say, I want to do this. Like they don't want to violate your free will. They're very, very adamant about it. It's something to be aware of.
That's a really great point. And that's part of the training and the torture techniques. Like they they give you a choice basically to pick, it's a catch 22. Like you get to pick the lesser of two evils, and they make you feel responsible for the consequences of whatever you choose.
Yeah. Yes. You're right.
And so you're choosing, but you really don't have a choice, in a sense. Like either choice that you make is going to have a consequence that still violates your consent and, what you would normally do if you were given an actual choice.
And I think that, one of the things they really tempt me with, because I'm a big bookworm, and really my main drive in life is probably knowledge. And they tell me all the secrets and things like that, and you know, tell me everything I want to know. But I say this too. I got to follow up with this: is that it's it's worse if you join. Like I got it bad for what I've been through and what I continue to go through and the targeting and all that. But what they're going through is worse. I think like for instance, to use an example, like my stepdad who abused me and did all these horrible things to me. Like he has to do it because he's not above getting targeted either, and and he's behind. He sees what they do to people. He sees what they did to me. You don't want that to happen to him. I feel like that's how a lot of these people, I think, there's half the people that are in this made a bad mistake. They didn't really know what they were getting into. I think that, but there's definitely an element too. Like half of them are really just sadistic, sick people that enjoy doing that stuff. But I definitely see how some of these people feel sorry, but they didn't have a choice either. They, like I said, the gang stalking is a recruitment tool, and these people just capitulated. And I even had conversations with them about this stuff and said, I told them, "You're never gonna get me, you know that, right? Like you're never gonna break me completely." And then you just say, "Oh no, we're gonna get you, watch." And one of those messages they give me is that what they're trying to do with the gang stalking and targeting and all this is to break me down. They want to break me down. They said when I join, they'll build me back up. And I get that message. And you know what else is, this is kind of, it's going to sound a little out there.
All of it does.
It does, but this one's really going to say, but I'll say it anyway. So, like, I believe in the Bible and stuff, and that, all this is written. And if you're a targeted individual, or SRA survivor, and you read the Bible, it hits you in a different light. It's almost like the Bible and all this was written for us to tell us how to navigate this, and not just the survivors, but people in general. But it just hits a little different when you've been through this and you got the perspective that we got. It's like a talk. And if you were target individual out there, I would recommend reading the Wisdom of Solomon. It's a short read. It's one of the lost books of the Bible, like Enoch or the Dead Sea Scrolls or something like that. It's a real short read. You probably do it in like a half hour. But it explains exactly who these people are and what their motives are. But shit, I got off track. What was I saying?
Well, no, that's, I think what you were going to say is you were, going to advise people who have gone through this and targeted individuals to, have a call to action to read that. Cause you're right. Like we're not taught spiritual warfare, but
Oh, I remember. So anyway, it says that these people, their days are numbered basically, and that it's written already that they're gonna fall disgracefully, and I think they know that, and I've had like conversations with them about that, and they do know it. But I remember I was they hacked one of my video games and they were taunting me and talking shit to me, and I was like, yeah, that's all right. I was like, TikTok, TikTok, the day's coming, you don't got much time. And this guy went into a fit, man, started screaming at the top of his lungs, fuck you, fuck, screaming. He got triggered massively by that. I was taken back. I couldn't believe that
wasn't
was
expecting that, huh?
so I think they know. I think they know.
That's their worst fear is that all this work goes to waste and somebody goes out and exposes it,
It's all con. It's all just a big con. Like these people are all around you. They're doing it's, and the average person just can't see it because they're so clouded. Their minds
Yeah.
are so clouded, and it's just a big con game, and they're getting away with it.
Like a mafia. That was such a great way to put that. It's very, very similar. You don't make it alive out of the mafia either. And if you do, like it's so rare or you're targeted your whole life.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, like my stepdad, who's the son of Satan. He used to always say he's retired, but I call him stashing guns for people, and you don't ever really get out. You know what I mean? And now, actually, when I was talking to I was talking to my mom the other day, and he unretired. He's now an active member. So
Wow. So let me ask you this. What has helped? I know that you have only, you're a little bit newer to having these memories. It's not like you've had them for decades and have had a lot of time to process them, but you mentioned the Bible, which I'm guessing has been really instrumental in some of these books. Has there been other things that have helped you with healing?
yeah, I mean, I would say like Cathy O'Brien. I talked to her, and we need to discuss this a little bit. But I see some of her videos, and I reached out to her to ask questions and get answers, and she replied to me. And when I talked to her, she really amazed me with how deep and wise she really was. That it was in a way that I didn't expect. Not that she, in a way that she didn't lead on her videos, even though she comes across as a very strong, smart, brave woman. But there's a whole nother deeper layer to her that's just, kind of amazing. But she gave me, we did a couple email correspondences. She gave me a lot to think about, and to she helped me a lot. What's the lady's name? The lady from Australia. Um,
Um,
the
is she
candy girl. She has a candy girl
Fiona?
document.
Fiona?
Fiona.
Yeah.
Yes, she did a. She put together like a PowerPoint presentation for people like us. That explained how to um heal yourself from the trauma and all that. That helped a lot, and it helped put things in perspective because I know a lot about what's going on with me and what's going on with the situation, but there's a lot of things I don't know. I'm still figuring out. That presentation she really gave me a lot of insight. I read the Emerald Tablets too. The Emerald Tablets talk about this stuff. Um, my mother. If it wasn't for my mom, they probably would have got their way with me. Um, and they tried very hard throughout my life to isolate me from her and to also dull her, I guess, motherly instincts. But and that's stuff. That's the kind of stuff that goes back to when I was a kid, that they were trying to manipulate and groom me. And yeah, if it wasn't for her, she never turned her back on me, and she always gave me solid advice. And she's that probably what saved me from them, sure. But I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. The lady, what's the lady? Is it Amy that you introduced me to?
Yeah, Amy Pfeffer.
Yeah, I've been talking to her. I'm looking forward to hopefully she can help me. And
She's wonderful.
Ellen Lecter, she was a help. And me, man, I trust in God, and um, that's why I'm not like scared like a lot of people are, and I kind of got the strength to fight back. And I believe that like my kingdom ain't of this earth, and so whatever happens, it don't really matter. So I gotta stand up and try to do the best I can to do the right things. And like I told you when we talked last time, when we talked about like the attempts on my life that I had and things like that, and and there's been other crazy stories that I could tell you too, but it, it always seems at the last minute something serendipitous happens and I get pulled out of danger every single time. And I'm starting to think like that's God. That's how it works. Or I get that I hear that voice inside me that gives me inspiration to do something. That's God talking to me. So I I don't know. I trust in that, trust in God. I believe that even if I gotta go through a storm, I'm gonna come out the other side okay, because it's happened so many times before in my past. I just walk away from it. And when I shouldn't, I should be dead.
It's true. Survivor, like you're literally a walking miracle. I mean, the statistic is so low of your path and how you're standing where you are right now, to have
Yeah,
gotten out, to have survived, to have healed to a level where you know, you can come up and talk on a podcast about it. Like that's like an impossible statistic, and you defied it. It's
break the
absolutely
program.
miraculous.
Yeah, break the programming, and I think like I read the Bible and it says This verse it says, behold, I refine thee, but not with silver. I'll forge thee in the furnace of affliction. And it just makes me think about my life that even though I gotta go through these horrible things and constant conflict and fighting every day, that I'm being molded into something better. And that, you know, it's what God wants me to go through to do whatever plan He got. So that's how I think sometimes.
That's beautiful. And I think, it's the hardest thing to do to heal. And I don't say that lightly. It is much easier to be miserable and to be in pain, and to be a victim than it is to do the work to come out the other side and figure out how am I going to use my story so it doesn't use me, and how can I turn my pain into something beautiful and purposeful that can help create the world that I wish existed when I was a child. And that's a really magical gift and a very beautiful mindset to strive to be in. And like I said, it's easier said than done. But I admire you for coming and talking about this and for stepping out of your comfort zone, doing something that, maybe a couple years ago you would have never saw yourself doing or thought was possible. And to have done all the work that you've done to, just in a couple short years, to be able to speak on a platform like this and to be so composed, and you still have such a full plate, and you're a male. It's like there's just so many little statistics and so many things and so many ways that you're breaking. You're a circuit breaker. You broke the chains in your family. You broke that trauma bond, and just that, generational trauma cycle that was proliferating in your family. And it's amazing. So I want to commend you and thank you for coming on, because like I said, I know that it's much easier to talk about positive things. It's not, these topics are not easy. They're not accepted mainstream. And you risk a lot coming forth and talking about this. So I want to commend you for your bravery and just for doing this, because I think we have a lot to learn from people like you. You've seen things that most people never will. Everybody, there's nobody that should have to go through what you did. I don't care who they are, but there's lessons to be learned in really hard things, and you've gone through extra hard things that most people won't. And so there's so much wisdom and such a higher level of thought that somebody like you may have versus somebody like me who didn't go through that. And I'm constantly learning from people like you, and I really think survivors are going to have a huge space and a huge voice in helping get the world and helping us create the world that we know can exist without all these psychos,
Yeah, wow, that was really nice what you said. And I don't know. Anything else you want to touch on?
Not unless you do. Is there anything that you wanted to go over that we didn't cover yet?
I was going to ask you the same thing. Is anything I told you last time that you think I should say? I mean, I'll say it.
Um,
I just don't remember.
Maybe in deciding to speak out, what do you hope? What's your hope in speaking out? Or do you have anything that you want to say to people listening? Any messages or inspiration behind your decision and what you hope that this brings to light?
I just want people to be, I want people to be aware that this is going on and that these are the people that can run your communities, control your communities. They're using these weapons against the public. As long as the public doesn't have an awareness about them, they're going to continue to get away with it. The only way it's going to change is if one by one people come to the cognition that this is going on. And when you learn, like when I was telling you about that, the NLP stuff, how they use neuro-linguistic programming in their day-to-day life, when you learn this stuff, and I'll tell you a great course is by Ron Ball. That's how I learned this stuff. Is he teaches CIA people this stuff. Right? Once you learn what they're doing, you're going to be able to spot them in your community because it's a tell sign that they know this stuff. And then You're gonna be able to tell what are they lying to you about, and what are they hiding. You're gonna be tell all that. It's things like that that the public needs to become aware of, so we can do something about this. And it's symbolism. They use symbolism to communicate. People need to learn how to read symbolism. It's in their business signs. They use hand signs, things like this. And I want to help. I hope. I love TI's, man. If you TI, I love you. I'll be there for you. I'll do whatever I can for you. I know what you're going through. You're not crazy. And I hope that this conversation helps shed some light on your situation. And I hope it gives you. I hope I said something that helped them. And you know, this is a biblical principle, but it says, when bad things happen to you, you should think about people that have it worse than you. You know what I mean? That's another reason why um I don't get too hard on myself about all this, because like I know like what the kids go through. There's a lot of kids out there that are suffering really bad right now. You know, and those are the ones that we need to help. You know, not me. And yeah, that's my mission here today. I want to get my story out too. I feel like I could have done a little better. I feel like,
You did great.
yeah,
Oh
thank
my
you.
goodness. I would have thought you've told your story hundreds of times. You did
I
awesome.
Oh no, I doubt it. And in fact, I tried to talk on another guy's YouTube channel, and they disabled the camera on my phone remotely, and they completely broke it, and I couldn't do the interview. And then I tried to talk to Jay Parker once, and they completely sabotaged that, and I couldn't get any traction with anybody. You're the first person I got any traction with, but it's not something I've really been seeking out like full time or anything. But I don't know. I believe I found the right person. I'm new to your channel. I just found you like last week when we started talking, and I don't really know much about you, but I think you found your niche. I think you're doing a real good thing. I watched your John Wedger interview, and yeah, yeah, I think you're really easy to talk to. And I think you're in the right place. I think good things are gonna come from this. And do you know who Wilfred Wong is?
Yes, he's still imprisoned.
Is he? That's what I wanted to ask. I sent I sent him some money to try and help him out.
Oh,
That's a I say
yeah.
that because I want other people too. If you got it, send him some money while he's in jail, because that's that guy put it all on the line to save a kid, and go and expose the satanic cult that's operating in the UK. And man, he, that's a brave man. That's a real man. You know, I hope I can be half the man that guy is.
And that's such an important case. And I think too, because it happened in the UK, a lot of Americans don't know about it. John Wedger was, who you mentioned, was a huge advocate in bringing awareness to Wilfred's story. But to my knowledge, he's still locked up. It's terrifying to think what whistleblowers go through trying to expose.
But that man has a security. That guy, he must have balls the size of cannonballs or something, because he was out there like doing private investigator stuff in his spare time, tracking these people down, finding out what houses. He was saying that they're operating out of people's houses. So I want to say it again, because I want people to understand that's how this works. You think it's this Joe Biden in the White House on TV. You think it's some celebrities or something. Like, no, these are people in your hood. These are people is that they're doing these stuff in houses in your neighborhood, and they do it, on military bases too and stuff like that. But it's people in your community. That's another reason I want to speak. That's one of the things that needs to be understood. That it's people in your community, in every community, and it's huge. It's way bigger than the public thinks. Hey, I'm
Absolutely. Yes, that's a very hard concept for people to wrap their minds around, because again, it goes against everything that we've ever learned. So I appreciate you, all those words of encouragement that you said to people listening. Thank you so much for everything. I appreciate you supporting the show. I'm so happy that you found it and reached out. This is a really valuable show, and I'm excited for people to hear it. And it's for this next question, it's totally fine if you don't have an answer to it. But if somebody did want to get in contact with you, is there some way that they could?
no, I'm not very active on the internet. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not
Okay.
good with that
Well, if
personally.
anything changes, let me know, and I'm happy to promote that. But if anybody's listening and you want to tell Regulus something, please put it in the comments under the show so he can go read them. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on. It means the world to me that you reached out. It's neat to see a day where there are people willing to share things like this. I try to think about even just a few years ago, it was really hard to find people who were courageous enough and in a space in their life where they could talk. And now it's like we're just seeing like just the depth of how far this goes. It's in every state, every community, and I encourage everybody listening, if you're in a space, to speak out, or if you're in a space to do something, do it, in your own way if you're able to. I know not everybody is able to, but it's, this is their worst fear, that we all come together, that we speak out, that we expose them, that we connect with each other, that we break the programming off, and that we create a world better than the one that they've manufactured for us. They don't want that, a world of love and positivity and high frequencies and God. They're trying to stifle that. So it takes all of us. We all are a piece to the puzzle, and we can all do something, even if it's not much. So Regulus, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. Thank you.
And for everybody listening, again, you guys can email me if you want to be a guest, and just send me some information on yourself. I'll have all of that in the show notes. Follow us on social media, share, comment, like if you found value in this, help elevate Regulus's voice and story. Share this everywhere you can. And thank you guys so much for supporting. I'm so grateful. So with that being said, God bless you all, and we will see you next week.